Hey, John.
Hi, Carrie.
So I'm having a party this weekend, and I have all these kegs of beer. How should I serve them? Should I just put them in a big bucket of ice like a big loser?
You're not a loser, Carrie. But you would be if you did that. Bitter and Esther's rents jockey boxes. Not only do we rent jockey boxes, but we also rent gas to go along with the jockey box. So you can serve your beer like a non-loser person.
Wow.
That sucked. Go to bitterandesters.com.
Wow.
And our apologies to all the losers who serve their beer out of ice buckets like me.
And me.
Yeah. Okay, maybe we shouldn't be so loser heavy on that.
Hey, Doug.
Hey, Kerry. How you doing?
I'm good. So I'm having a party this weekend.
Oh, that sounds fun. Can I come?
Sure. And I have all these kegs of beer that I need to serve. How would you recommend serving them? Should I just put them in a big bucket of ice?
Most people just hollow out a pumpkin and pour the beer into the pumpkin and serve it out of a warm, disgusting pumpkin. We, however, at Bitter and Esther's... No, that's a terrible idea. You should go to Bitter and Esther's and rent a jockey box. It's this fantastic cooler with a tap handle that you can pour your beer out of at cold. You don't need ice. You do need ice. That's fucking stupid. Don't be a plebeian.
Stupid, Carrie. That would be stupid.
Okay, I'm done.
Welcome to See What You Can Brew, the podcast about homebrewing community and everything beer in New York City.
Brought to you by Bitter and Esther's in Brooklyn, New York. We're your hosts, Douglas Amport
And John LaPola.
So, on today's show, we talk with Carrie Soom, who many of you might know as, well, Carrie Soom.
Yeah, Doug. Thanks for that brilliant intro. Carrie is the dictator of the Brooklyn homebrewing club, the Brewminaries, and a prolific brewer with a very interesting series of beers. Carrie gives a pretty accurate depiction of the club and talks about Magic Mike XXL.
But before we get started, I wanted to shift gears and say a big thank you to everybody on iTunes who clicked subscribe, left a rating, and especially the four of you who actually wrote some words. Those reviews are awesome. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, guys.
Cool. John, you were just on vacation.
I was visiting my family down south and took a short trip over to Asheville, North Carolina. I'm sure you people know about Asheville. It's got an amazing craft beer scene. It's my second time there.
Lots of beer.
But what I really like about the area is it's a bunch of waterfalls nearby. So we hiked during the day and drank at night, as you should do. So it's a really good quick vacation. Pretty much all of the breweries there are great. I mean, it's amazing. It's just you walk down the street and you say, I'll try this one, I'll try that one. But the one that really stuck out on this trip was a place, and I'm not going to pronounce this right, Suris Kemi. It was a customer who texted me and suggested it, said, this is a really great hidden gem.
What did they do there?
Well, they have about 16 taps. They have really beautiful tap room, all like reclaimed wood. It was gorgeous. It was really hidden, too. Like it was behind a fence. It was weird, but it was really beautiful. They have these giant folders. They have all these barrels. But it turns out that they only make their beer on a half-barrel system.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because of some problems with the government there. They do have a larger system. They just can't use it yet. So I talked to the owner, Jeff, for a little bit, and we're going to have him on the podcast pretty soon.
Cool.
Because
Okay.
his story was really interesting, and it'd be nice to talk more about the Asheville scene. I kind of almost think of Asheville as being like a Brooklyn sister city.
Interesting.
In a way. Yeah, it's got a real Brooklyn feel. It's very, very nice, and a lot of great beer. So I had a really good time.
I think that fantastic breweries hidden away in industrial complexes behind fences is sort of a theme outside of New York City.
Yes.
The same thing happened in Austin when I went to St. Elmo's. We were driving along, drove into this industrial complex. There were all these warehouses and things, and then suddenly there's this like happening brewery with a bluegrass band right there. It was pretty great. Yeah. Well, you were out enjoying beers in Asheville. You missed the beer swap.
I did,
August.
and
It was
I
very sad.
haven't missed many beer swaps in
I think
8 years we've been doing it. This is probably like number 6.
I think
that
we
missed.
moved to the other hand just
Yeah,
with this one, yeah, on
probably.
our counting. So we had a really great beer swap, fantastic showing. And the voting between people came down to one vote, although I was a little drunk, so it might have come down to me counting the votes properly. But the nice thing about it was that you being gone did give me the opportunity to do the interviews with the winner of the Heath Sobel Memorial fucking Cup. who was Rob Newhouse. Rob Newhouse won the cup with a smattering of assorted sours that were all fantastic. Each sour that he brought like 4 or 5 different beers. Each one was 18 months or older.
Wow.
So yeah, so we talk a little bit about his setup, about how he's able to make so many great sours, and what he's up to.
Rob is the sour beer maker. I've had many of his beers.
Yeah, I think he's got like 30 different carboys. Anyway, he talks about that a little bit.
Let's check it out.
So I'm here with Rob Newhouse, the winner of the second, the Heath Stobel Memorial fucking Cup. You made 3 beers that you
I
got
made
nominated.
6 beers. This
You made
is
6
cheating.
beers.
This is cheating. This is cheating. I acknowledge. With 6 beers, I got 15 votes. The other dude, Ruben, with 13 votes. So I really shouldn't be down here, but yeah,
Awesome.
I acknowledge cheating.
What beers did you make today?
So I brought blackberry, raspberry, Flanders Red, a peach golden sour, I'm too drunk. I brought a couple of different golden sours with no fruit in them, a Flanders Red with cherry and some malib, like ground up cherry pit.
Is this what I'm trying now?
Yeah. This is the Flanders with cherry and cherry pit, and a golden sour with mango and pineapple.
This Flemish Red's really good.
It was not as good as the other one, but yeah, sure.
So you made 6 sours.
I make ridiculous quantities of sour beer. I think I've got 25 sour beers going down in my parents' basement in New Jersey, in various states of fermentation. Unless they're absolutely delicious, I'll add some fruit to them. Fruited sour beer is just like my thing. I just absolutely love fruited sour beer. Yeah.
So I know a little bit, like, because I helped you learn to homebrew, kind of.
did? Yeah,
I mean, generally speaking. But tell me, how did you get into homebrewing, and more importantly, how did you get into sours from there?
So I got into craft beer, I don't know, in the same, like, a 2-week period, I got into craft beer and marijuana. Yeah, literally fucking Goose Island IPA in, like, the bodega, that was super good. And it started me into getting into craft beer, and I went to the Google Homebrew Club. And then a guy who learned to brew here, Ted Cadu, he showed up to the Homebrew Club, and the first beer he brought, homebrewed with like a bitter Nestor's quit, was like really good. And it was some nice Belgian kind of blonde ale or something. It's like, oh, that's his first beer. It's good. I must be able to like also make a first beer that's good. And he actually taught me how to brew. So he learned from you, and I learned from him. Yeah.
But what got you? So you learned to brew from your friend at Google. But what brought you to sours specifically?
Yeah. I guess I got into sour beer. I don't know what really made me love sour beer aside from it being delicious. I do remember taking like an early trip to like a year after I got into craft beer. My wife and I always go to Belgium in the summer because I was super into sour beer. We visited Cantillon. That was fucking fantastic. And then like maybe a year and a half later, I quit my job at Google, so I had a bunch of time, and I've got parents who live in New Jersey, so I just brewed a bunch of beer in their basement. Took a week brewing like, I don't know, maybe 5 gallons each day, and started aging it. So that got me into like mixed firm sour beers, like actually doing it.
And now we're drinking all of the results of this year off or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So 3 years ago, I was frustrated at Google, and so I fermented a bunch of sour beer. Maybe learned a little bit in the process, and this is a year and a half old sour beer that has been fermenting in New Jersey.
So what you're saying is we should brew more beer. We should get angry at our jobs and brew more beer.
Quit your job and just go homebrew in your parents' basement. Leave your shitty urban lifestyles and fill up your parents' beer with basement with beer. And then 2 years later, you're going to be really happy with yourself.
Rob, thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great fucking beers.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. You guys sounded a little bit like having a really good
like
time.
we were having a lot of fun.
Yeah, like
we
you
were
were
having
having
a lot of
fun.
There were a lot of beers. I don't go to as many swaps as I should, so I get a little excessive when I do.
Well, it is a place to be excessive, so... Remember, the next beer swap is coming up on Wednesday, September 4th, 6:30 p.m. at Bitter Nesters. If you've never been, it's really a lot of fun. We'd love to see you.
Bring some beer.
Bring some beer. Talk to other brewers. It's just it's a real highlight of the month.
It's really fun.
Yeah, it's really a lot of for me. It is. It's really a lot of fun. We have some cool stuff coming up next month. We are actually doing a collaboration brew with the Brewminaries. It's a couple of Brewminaries that come with us to Randolph Beer in Williamsburg with Flint Whistler. We're going to be brewing a Brute IPA, with him. And then we're also going to be doing something with Grimm Ales. We're
Ooh,
gonna
that's
be
exciting.
macerating some fruit with them for a sour. So we actually have 2 collabs coming up in September, and then we're going to have a bike ride on Sunday, September 29th, where we will bike to both locations. First, we'll go to Williamsburg for Randolph, then we'll go over to Bushwick to go to Grimm, try both beers. Since we're in Bushwick, we might want to hit another couple of breweries. We probably will. These bike rides are always a lot of fun. They're free. We meet at Bitter Nesters, and we go just a biking. The beer's not free, but the bike ride's free.
Bike ride turns into a bit of a bike crawl.
Bike
walk.
What's
Yeah.
fun about them is that, we start out with 20, 30 people, and then, by the end, it's like 4 of us, like, let's go to another brewery. You see them drop off. But it really is a lot of fun. So
We haven't lost anybody yet.
There'll be more information on our website, seewhatyoucanbrew.com, on bitternesters.com, on our social media, and also on our newsletter. So there'll be information everywhere. You cannot escape us. We are information heavy.
So, John.
Yes, Doug.
So we got our first question about homebrewing via the email questions@bitternesters.com. No one has still emailed us at Douglas or John at bitternesters.com.
I'm going to do that.
One of our customers wrote us with this question. He said, Terry said, I've been brewing for about 3 years now and have yet to hit my expected final gravity once. What gives? That was sort of a very general question. He went on to give me a lot of detail about it. He's been brewing a bunch of different styles of beers. It sounded pretty weird, and so I needed more information. We talked a little bit via email at length, and his beers kept finishing around 1.030. He would get a good OG, and then they just wouldn't dry out.
That sounds like a stall to me.
It sounds like a stalled fermentation, but every beer.
Right, every beer.
All
would be
year
weird.
round.
I
So
know.
I talked with him about fermentation
He
temperatures.
used yeast, right?
He used yeast in every beer, yeah. He had great mash temperature. He measured his mash temperature as well within range, 152, not too high, not too low. This happened again and again and again. So I kept asking him what was up.
Let me guess. There was something just weird.
Oh, there was something just weird. It even tasted good. That was the weirdest thing.
That's the
It's the most important
way to
part.
know how your beer came out is whether your beer came out good. Right?
Yeah, everything tasted good, and so have you got a guess? The only real problem was these weird final gravity readings.
It has something to do with how he was reading the final gravity.
Well, it does,
has to
yeah.
be it. Either the hydrometer was just insane.
No,
He was taking frozen readings,
that's a possibility. Or he was using a refractometer.
or he was using a refractometer for final gravity.
He was using his refractometer for final gravity, and that really was funny because we had about 15 emails back and forth trying to figure out, oh, is it the yeast? Is it the temperature?
It's always that one thing, We end up being forensic scientists. I find that we go through. We're detectives. We go through every little thing, and we're like, "You sure? You sure? You sure? You sure?" There it is.
Yep.
There it is.
That's the one thing.
Yeah, you can take final gravity with the refractometer, but you need to use a spreadsheet to compensate for the fact that there's alcohol in it, and it's really not as accurate as just using a hydrometer. I'm glad you told him that. I'm glad you were able to figure that out.
I'm happy that we got to the bottom of it. It was a real mystery, and we said it. We emailed back and forth, and then I left it alone for a week, and then I was just clicking through my emails one day. I'm like, wait a minute, what are you measuring with? And he's like, oh, my refractometer. Yeah. So if you're out there and you're using a refractometer, it's great for during the mash. It's great for your pre-boil and your OG, but you can't. Well, you can use it for final gravity, but don't use a hydrometer.
Use a hydrometer. Thank you.
Cool. That's about all I wanted to talk about today.
All right, now for the main event, we have our interview with Carrie Soom, the dictator of the Brewminaries. We sat down with her for about a half hour, and she was just a delight, right? Do you agree?
It was so much fun.
She's so much fun. She brought us beer. She's just...
she sounds so much better than us. Yeah,
She does.
Her voice is perfect for radio.
And she's just... We really had a lot of laughs and a really great time. So this is a great interview. Check it out.
Hi, Kerry.
Hi, Doug.
How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Would you introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. I am Carrie Soom. I am the dictator of the Brewminaries, New York City's largest homebrew club.
So, dictator, what does that mean? Is that like a president in other clubs, maybe?
Yeah, I didn't come up with the nomenclature, but I was democratically elected.
Kerry, when did you start homebrewing?
I started homebrewing in, I think it was the fall of 2014. My roommate at the time, she and I were both into cooking and sort of craft projects and drinking beer. And she had done the Brew Shop 101 class here.
Oh.
And so we were like, we should try making our own beer sometime. And so I borrowed a little 1-gallon kit from a friend of mine and brought it in here and went through all the recipe books and picked out what I think was probably a really weird recipe for our first batch.
Which one was that?
We did I think it was called the Prohibition Ale from the Brooklyn Brew Shop recipe book. And the recipe itself was fairly normal, but it called for carbonating it with raisins, which was like a Prohibition era carbonation trick. So you had to use exactly 4 raisins per bottle because 3 would result in not enough carbonation.
And 5 was far too much.
5 was a bottle bomb. And so I remember John looking at the recipe and being like, I don't know about these raisins. And I was like,
That sounds like me.
I'm like, it says raisins, we're going to use raisins. And we used raisins, and it was fine. I remember being very excited that we made beer that tasted like beer. It's a pretty low bar for us. We had like 10 bottles because it was 1 gallon. And being like, oh, we can do this. Okay.
So did you start with all grain then?
Yeah.
These 1-gallon kits?
Mhm. I've never brewed extract.
You've never brewed extract.
No.
How did you transition from 1 gallon to 5, and what was that like?
Well, we transitioned to 2.5 after I think 2 or 3 batches. Once we kind of knew that we were able to do this and making beer was possible, then I came in and bought like the 3.5 gallon bucket and started doing bigger batches. We were still bottle conditioning, so 5 gallons of bottles just felt like extremely unwieldy. But that was when I started, thinking about coming to the bottle swaps here because we had more than 10 bottles of each batch.
It is nice to be able to share beer.
Yeah. But I think, even now I still mostly do 2.5 gallon batches unless I'm
okay.
brewing for an event, just because I don't have a kegerator, I don't have a keezer. And 5 gallons just tends to be a lot for me to go through of one beer, and 2.5 means I can still have some variety, but it's
Yeah.
enough to share.
You do a lot of thematic brewing.
I do.
Do you not? Tell us about some of those themey things that you've done.
So I started pretty much like right when I started brewing, like within the first year, it was Mother's Day. And I thought, well, my mom really likes IPAs, so I'll make my mom an IPA, and I called it Mommy Beerist.
How'd you like it?
She was very supportive. It was only, I think, my 3rd or 4th beer. It was when we were still doing 1 gallon batches, so it was very new. And I think it was our first batch when we actually had bought a hydrometer and could measure our ABV and did not understand efficiency yet. And I think that beer was about 2.6%. So
Beer only
Session.
a mother could love?
yes. And I made my dad Father's Day beer that year. That was not quite as themed. I did a whole series of Marvel beers based on the Avengers. So I did, the first one that came to mind was a Captain America Ice Bock. So it got frozen and then got stronger.
How'd that come out?
It was Ice Bock only conceptually. It didn't really... My freezer didn't get cold enough to actually fully separate the water and the alcohol, so I think it only got maybe 0.5% stronger in the freezing process because I kind of just made a beer slushy. I think it tasted pretty good. I still have a couple bottles of it, and I made it in February 2017,
Oh, wow.
so I still have some.
How many Avengers beers did you make?
I made 13 total.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the best one?
I was partial to the Thor Beer, which was one of my first times using one of the Norwegian Kvike strains. So I did I called it an Imperial Blonde, and then I used the Voskvike, and it came out about like 9.5%. I used Waititi hops because I thought it sounded like Taika Waititi, who directed the Thor movie.
That is such a...
It's a bit of a stretch, but...
No, I meant it was just such a detail.
Oh,
yeah. Like,
but yeah, and when I did the Captain America Ice Bock, I just basically took a German Ice Bock recipe and then did like a 1-for-1 replacement with all of the German ingredients with American ingredients. And it turned out that some of the like 1-for-1 suggested replacements. It was like Victory Malt, Liberty hops. And I was like, this is so perfect.
Did you do an Ironman?
I did it was a red IPA. Red IPAs aren't my favorite style, but other people seem to really like it. So I only did 1 gallon of that, and I might need to do some more at some point. There's a few Avengers I missed, so I need to, I think, do part 2.
Any other themed beers?
Early on, I think, I made a beer that was themed to my favorite movie, Magic Mike XXL, because there's a part in the movie when they're eating frozen yogurt and they ask what flavor it is, and they say toasted marshmallow tangerine. I could not imagine whether or not that would be a tasty flavor combination. Instead of thinking, oh, let me just make an ice cream, I thought, well, I can put those things in a beer.
I think I had that. Did you bring that to the swap?
Yeah, I ended up making it a couple times. The first time I made it, I used actual like marshmallow fluff and put it in the boil. So it pretty much all fermented out. I don't know that it necessarily gave any marshmallowy flavors. And the second time, someone at the swap had suggested taking, instead of using marshmallows, just taking sugar and roasting it in the oven to get some of those caramelly, toasty sugar flavors. And so I did that the second time.
What's Magic Mike XXL?
It is the sequel to Magic Mike, which is the Channing Tatum stripper movie. And the first one was sort of a dark film about the dark side of the dance world, I suppose. And then the second one is just a fun road trip movie about a bunch of men being friends.
A bunch of stripper men being friends?
Well,
I've
yeah.
never seen it. So
Yeah. So they basically, the whole plot of the movie is they're going on a road trip up to a convention where they're about to all quit stripping and move on with their lives, and they just want one last good time with the fellas. And so it like focuses a lot on like their friendships, and they all have their own like one little character development plot point where like one of them's trying to find love and one of them's trying to open his own frozen yogurt business. And so, I don't know, it's just a very fun, positive movie. There's a good, like, let's put on a show montage at the end.
It sounds really fun.
It is very fun.
You have a podcast that you're starting about this movie.
I do.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to launch in mid or late September, but it is called Magic Minute XXL. It will break down the movie 3 minutes at a time. So there's a whole bunch of minute-by-minute podcasts like Star Wars Minute, or I listened to one that was the Jurassic Park Minute.
Are you gonna brew a beer themed for each section?
Not for each section, because I think that would be a bit intense. But I think have 2 different Magic Mike XXL beer recipes, so I'm going to release those sort of in conjunction when those episodes come up.
That's fun.
It was actually a Brewminary who gave me the idea for it, because we were hanging out at someone's house and I was talking about how, someone said, what's your favorite movie? And I said that, and everyone laughed. And I said, no, I think it actually is. And it was Pia who said, you should start a podcast about this. And I was like, ha ha. And then the next day I couldn't stop thinking about who I would have on to talk about this movie. And I was like, maybe I will do that.
Seize the day.
Yeah.
You were a person that I kept hearing your name. Kerry this, Jack would say it, John would say it, and everybody I knew seemed to know you before I did. It was really weird. You were really involved with a lot of people really fast, from my perspective. And then I finally got to know you, and then you became, Dictator of the Brewminaries. How did you get to know everybody? Was it through the Brewminaries?
It was through Brewminaries and through coming to swaps. And Jack especially, he was here a lot of the times that I was working on one of these weird beers or working on one of the Avengers beers. So there were times when I would be in here buying ingredients to make 3 things and saying, well, what hops make you think of the Hulk? And so he helped me kind of workshop a bunch of recipes, and I'd be like, well, what beer do you think Scarlet Witch would drink?
That sounds like a question for Jack, definitely. Yeah.
And so he would help me out with some of those questions. Those are definitely unusual beer store questions.
Absolutely, yeah. So what hops do make you think of the Hulk?
I really had a hard time because for the Hulk, obviously, I had to make a smash.
Used a green hop, right?
I did. I eventually went with Comet just because I had a whole bunch of it for free. I figured comets are in space and the Hulk was in space in the last Thor movie, and that was
Okay.
the best I could do. So
It's
it
a
was
stretch, but
it
it's
was
okay.
a stretch, but there was really, I thought Galaxy would be good, but then I used that for the Guardians of the Galaxy beer.
Yeah, that's a really solid fit. It's
Yeah.
okay. That's
Not
that's
everything was
interesting.
as perfect as Victory Malt and Liberty hops.
That's true.
You should submit this to the AHA. Write an article on it.
Oh.
A themed beer idea. You don't really see that.
You don't see 13 themed beers in a row, for sure. that's definitely like a set. You could put out a mixed 12-pack.
Well, and the
And then,
thing
like,
that made
a
it
bonus.
tricky was that I did them all at the same time and I had a big party. I think I had 5 in kegs. I had 3 of them in like 2-liter carb cap bottles because I only did 1-gallon batches of those. The rest of them were all bottle conditioned because a bunch of them were things that had to age because a good deal of them were pretty boozy. And so I had this huge party and I like printed up a beer program and I printed out a poster that was like that Captain America meme where he's like sitting backwards on the chair where he's like, so you got detention. And it said, so you want to pour a bottle conditioned beer, and had all the instructions so that my non-beer friends would understand how to not pour all the yeast out into their glass.
When you get an idea, you really run with it, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the Brewminaries.
All right. So the Brewminaries is a homebrew club founded out of this very shop back in 2015. A group of people who were coming to the swap. It was suggested that they maybe form a club because there was all these other clubs happening, and so they basically took that to heart, wrote up ideas of what the club would be, what the meetings would be, and really started it with a very sound structure right away. They were really organized about it. I didn't end up joining until 2016, and the way the club was run really seemed like it had been around for a lot longer because they really had all their stuff together. But I ended up joining after coming to swaps a few times, and it took me a few months of Rachel and Ariel being like, you should really join our club, and we're running for Dictator and Vice Dictator next year. So finally I was like, I don't know, I come to the swaps and that's free and these people are nice. And then after a few swaps, I was like, no, I should hang out with these people more.
The swaps are actually just Brewminary recruitment.
Yeah, we call it like
Things.
it's our farm team.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. We're AAA, huh?
Yeah, the first Thursday of every month is usually at least 1 or 2 new Brewminaries as we pick up some new folks who are maybe come to their first or second swap, and we're like, well, I think it's about time you hang out with us 2 to 3 times as much.
One of us.
Yeah.
How many people are in the Brewminaries now? Do you know?
Right now we're close to 160.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a lot, but the active group is a bit smaller, but the new members tend to be very active, at least for the past like year and a half. We used to get people who would kind of join and come to 1 or 2 things and maybe not really show up to stuff, but like especially like I remember the class of 2018 was a whole all joiners. We would put out, we're having a showcase, who wants to brew, and just all the spots would be gone in a flash because everyone was so excited to be brewing, which was really cool because it's fun when everyone's actually involved. It makes meetings a little cramped, but it's in a good way.
Well, you guys have a showcase coming up, and I know Larry wanted to get into it, and you had something like 35 slots or 30 slots, and it was done in hours.
Yeah.
Like it was just full. And
That-
he got in 3 days afterwards and had no chance of getting a slot.
Yeah, so that was signups for our annual event, which is coming up in October. In the past, signups for that have kind of gone for a week or 2. I remember the first year I was in the club, I thought about it for 2 weeks before signing up. Now we had 32 brewers within 20 hours. It was less than a day. And the first 28 spots, I think, were gone in the first 15 minutes. It went so fast.
So tell us more about this event. This is your annual fundraiser?
It is. So the event is called Brewminaries Present Gravity. And so each year we throw an event. It's Brewminaries Present something. So last year we did local and it was all New York State ingredients. And this year the theme is gravity. And so the brewers are paired and we'll be brewing a big version and a little version of the beer. So one person will brew a table saison and the other person will brew a super saison. So the idea is the little beer will be about 5% or lower and the big beer will be about 8% or higher. So it's these sort of non-competing pairs of similar styles, different in strength.
It's a really neat idea. Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, I really like the idea that for your fundraiser, it is also an educational and thematic sort of thing. You guys do that every year.
Yeah.
There's so many brewing events and they're all great, but to have something that is a little bit different, you can go and say, oh, I'm going to try the big beer and a little beer. I've never really had that chance. And there's going to be 32 beers, right?
And we typically we try to stick with BJCP style standards just because we are inviting the public and we don't want to go too weird, because I think that obviously I love a weird beer, but sometimes it can be a harder sell to be like, come drink this like weird shredded wheat
with flaming hot
beer.
Cheetos.
Yeah, who would ever do that?
Homebrewers.
Yeah. And so, we try to keep it traditional for our event because that way it can appeal to a wider range of people, and it really focuses on the quality of homebrew, because I think that there are some, negative stereotypes about people not thinking homebrew is good who haven't had good homebrew. And meanwhile, people in New York City clubs, not just Brewminaries, are making beers that are as good or better than commercial beers.
Agreed. So when and where is this event and how much?
So the event will be Sunday, October 13th, and it will be at Bergen from 1 to 5 p.m. Tickets will be going on sale on August 26th.
So how do you get those tickets?
So you can go to brewminaries.com and we'll have the link real big once it is on sale on August 26th. And we will have a special early bird price for the first 30 tickets sold. It will be the lowest price available. We might have coupon codes later, but the price will not get lower than the early bird ticket price.
And Bergen is over on Bergen Street in Brooklyn.
It is. We will
It's
be
right around
in
the corner from Bitter and Esther's.
Yes, we'll be in the private room and the courtyard. There's also the food hall, which we won't have to ourselves, but will be available for food purchase. There are, kids are welcome, dogs are welcome. So we're hoping that it'll be a really fun, inclusive event.
Carrie brought us a beer. Doug's opening it. It's 10 in the morning.
Well, it's
10:41.
It's 10:41 by now.
Kerry, I have another question for you. So you are halfway through your 2-year dictator term, right?
Well, it's a 1-year term. I
1-year
would
term? Okay.
potentially run for re-election.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just there's a precedent of 2-year terms.
Yes.
Yeah. So you've been dictator of the Brewminaries for a year. What do you see happening with the Brewminaries in the next year, in the next 5 years? Do you see the club staying the same? Do you see things changing at all? I mean, where do you see kind of the momentum going?
We're definitely growing. I mean, we keep getting more and more new members each year. We have to put in our budget how many new members we think we'll get each month. And both last year and this year, we have almost doubled our monthly allotment of new members. At some point, I think we won't get as many new members. You would have imagined there has to be a cap, but every month we get another, 4 to 6 new people who want to join the club. So right now, I don't know that there's an end in sight. We definitely want to be more present at competitions, encouraging people to do that and get their beer judged, especially with women. There aren't as many women represented in a lot of homebrew competitions, and we definitely noticed it at some of the local ones as well, that we want, you can't win if you don't enter. And so...
Well, I think I noticed when we were at HomebrewCon, there were no women who won medals that weren't a team.
Right.
Yeah, there were no individual female winners up there on the stage at all.
Yeah. And I certainly don't want to knock the team brewers, because there's a lot of Brewminaries who brew as a team with, partners or spouses or whatever, and that doesn't,
Oh no, I'm not knocking it in any way.
But
It was just,
I
it was just
agree.
Noticeable. It was just noticeable.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very interesting thing that we haven't talked about the Brewminaries is just the there's a large female presence, a large woman presence in the Brewminaries. I think it's awesome and huge. And I think there have been 3 dictators.
Yeah.
And they have all been women.
Yes. Yeah. There were women in the founding members and the club founding officers. And then every dictator the club's ever had has been a woman. Right now, we have 5 of our 7 officers are women. We try to do a lot of, we have like a channel on our Slack that is the ladies collab. And so we don't necessarily do a lot of actual collaborating together, but it's just a place for us to chat or complain about a sexist beer label we saw, or post, resources, or is anyone going to this, women in beer meetup or whatever it may be. We have a big club and not everyone is equally active, but I think that we have a really active group of women brewers. So if, at any given time, if you come to a meeting, 20% of our club might not be women, but at least 20 to 50% at any given meeting is likely to be women.
Yeah, it's noticeable and it's great. It's nice to see people somewhat evenly represented.
Yes.
That's all. Yeah.
Are the Brewminaries involved with Pink Boots Society at all?
We are not, just because with Pink Boots, in order to be a member, you need to get a certain percentage of your income from the beer industry. So we have Brewminaries members who have gone to meetings or have been involved with it. I went to one of the Pink Boots brew days at Fifth Hammer that Mary Izette hosted last year. But because we're a club and a lot of our members are not getting their income from beer, most of us are not eligible to be a part of it.
It'd be interesting if they did an offshoot that was, homebrewers.
There's another group that's it's called Barley's Angels, I think, and they may be more for beer appreciation. So there's not anything focused on homebrewers, but there's beer and people who don't necessarily work in it, and then there's the pro brewers, not much in between, but I think they do a lot of stuff together. I haven't been able to make it to any of their things yet.
What are we drinking here, Kerry?
So we're drinking Maple Breakfast Stout from 14th Star Brewing in Vermont, which I just picked up. I was in Vermont at the end of July, and they sell this at a gas station in Vermont, which is, and it was, $12 or something for a 4-pack, and sometimes it's nice to not be in New York City.
I love the fact that, hey, we want some good craft brew and a fill up?
Yep.
go to this gas station.
But yeah, this is, I went to the Vermont Craft Brewers Festival 3 or 4 years ago, and it's in Burlington. We went camping, and 14th Star had a tent, and I remember looking at the beer lineup and being like, Maple Breakfast Stout, I need to have that. And we went to the last session of the festival and they were out. So I hunted it down at a grocery store before we left. So now anytime I'm in Vermont, I'm like, I'll just check a place that they sell beer and see if I can grab some to bring back.
And the gas station had it.
Mm-hmm.
So before you started homebrewing, how much of a beer enthusiast were you?
I was definitely an enthusiast. I have a friend, my friend Mel, I call her my beer guru. She went to school in North Carolina and used to bartend at a brewery there. So she really helped get me into beer. And I used to, back when the fanciest thing I drank was Stella, and we'd go to a craft beer bar and I would tell her the kinds of things I liked and she would help me pick out beers. I remember being at Brewery Lane in Greenpoint and telling her the kinds of things that I liked, and she picked me out my first Belgian double, and I remember drinking that and being like, oh, it's like a wheat beer but better and more. And that was one of my gateway beers. And I feel like a lot of people, when I first got into beer, I was like, well, I don't really like the super hoppy things. So I kind of came in through the wheats and Belgians and then into sours, and eventually now I like everything.
Now you're just crushing Northeast IPAs constantly, I'm sure.
Oh, constantly.
This beer is delicious. Thank you very much for it. And
Thank you for having me.
Perfect for breakfast.
Yes.
All right, Carrie. Well, thank you very much for being on the show with us today.
Thank
been
you,
really,
Kerry.
really fun conversation.
And thank you for the beer. Would you give us the date and time for the event one more time?
Sure. It is Brewminaries Present Gravity. It will be Sunday, October 13th at Bergen. You can go to brewminaries.com for all the information about where to get tickets. And we also will be donating a portion of our proceeds to a nonprofit We'll announce the nonprofit once tickets go on sale, but it will be some sort of New York agriculture-related, beer-related nonprofit. So in the past, we've donated to the Cornell Cooperative Extension, who help out the Madison County hop growers. And last year, we donated to the Cornell Small Grains Breeding and Genetics Program, who works with New York grain farmers to help with yields and all sorts of stuff. So,
Well, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Can't wait. Carrie, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Carrie. It was really
Thank
wonderful
you.
having you. It was really a lot of fun. We could talk to you all day. But
same.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was a great beer and a great interview.
it really was. It was a lot of fun.
I like Kerry.
Avengers and Magic Mike. I mean, what more could you want? Yeah. She's a good example of what's great about the homebrew scene in New York City, right? When you
Yeah, I
think
think
about
so.
it. And the Brewminaries they totally rock. They are picking that ball up and just keep running and running and running. And so proud to have been even a little part of them getting started. It's really cool.
It was really fun. And we should talk, we're going to have Kerry and Rachel and Sherry on at some point, all the dictators through the many years of the Brewminaries on to talk about a little bit more about the history of them and sort of why they came to be.
So stay tuned for that. Yeah, that's going to be that's going to be a really long interview. But it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm sure we'll get real drunk at 10 in the morning, so that's cool.
Awesome.
So, all right, we're going to wrap it up here. Just remember to send your brewing questions, comments, or threats to questions@bitterandesters.com.
Until next time. Je ne suis pas chou, je suis juste ivre de vous. I'm not drunk. I'm intoxicated with your beauty.